Mr. Chairman. And Ambassador, good to have you back before us. As you know, I feel strongly that you need to have the ability to negotiate trade opening agreements. That would make your job a lot more interesting, as well as the jobs of your associates. So that's a broader topic, but I think in the context of the Competes Act, also known as USICA, also known by about 5 other names, I think there's an opportunity for us to do something. And you and I have talked about it. I've talked to Secretary of Commerce about it. So I hope you will be working with us on that. If there's going to be trade adjustment assistance, typically that's with Trade Promotion Authority. And my view is that these agreements that are right before us, including the UK agreement, which has virtually no issues as it relates to labor or the environment, are low-hanging fruit, and it would be great to get America back in the game. With regard to China, and your discussion in your testimony about the need to use existing tools, you refer to the Phase 1 agreement as part of the old playbook because China has not lived up to its commitments. And I get that. It's frustrating when China doesn't live up to its commitments. But I don't think we can just move along and say, so let's start to work on other ways in which we can open more opportunities. Instead, I think we have to stick with that agreement and use what's in the agreement, which is dispute resolution. I think if we just say we're going to forget that and make that part of the old playbook, I think it sends a terrible message because I think when China makes an agreement with us and they don't fulfill their obligations, we have to exercise our legal rights under that. And I think it's going to be much more difficult to make progress with China on the subsidies, on state-owned enterprises, on suppression of labor rights, and other things if we don't insist that the agreement be adhered to. So I guess my question to you would be, are you willing to move forward with dispute resolution? Are you willing to commit to utilizing the dispute resolution process that the United States enjoys as part of that Phase 1 agreement, possibly culminating in restrictions on trade with China as necessary to enforce the agreement?
Senator Portman, it's always a pleasure to see you. On your question on China, I appreciate the opportunity to clarify my position and what I've said because I have seen it reported perhaps a bit inaccurately, which is to say it is the time to turn the page on the old playbook, which focused exclusively on pressuring China and seeking China to change its ways or, pressing China for compliance. We are not giving up on pressing China on compliance or on changing its ways. And yes, all tools remain on the table with respect to dispute settlement and enforcement. But my main point is that that's not the only thing we can do now. And we have to expand our strategy to include developing the tools that we need to defend the interests of our economy. So in fact, what I'm saying is we're committing to doing more work and our strategy needs to expand.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think using those existing tools we have are important. Again, setting a precedent of not using the dispute resolution tools that we have, I think would be problematic for China and others. Let me talk to you about new tools, because that's the other point that you make. I've talked about this a lot. We just don't have the tools to keep up with China, in my view, as they try to undermine our national competitiveness. They're subsidizing manufacturing in many countries through their Belt and Road Initiative, and yet our trade enforcers are powerless to combat those subsidies. Our bipartisan legislation with Senator Brown called Level the Playing Field 2.0 contains new tools to deal with that reality. I mean, it's what's happening out there, the transshipments and particularly the Belt and Road subsidies. That bill is something I'm pushing very hard, as you know, to have included, as it is in the House version in the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act we talked about earlier. Thank you for your support of this approach. Can you explain to the committee how this legislation would help to combat China's unfair trade practices?
Well, Senator Portman, let me begin by commending you and Senator Brown for working in a bipartisan way and bicamerally on this legislation and this initiative. In terms of how it would help us, I just want to emphasize that most of our trade enforcement tools date back to the 1970s and the 1980s. And it is critical that we retain those tools. But over time, as the global economy has evolved around us, our tools have not kept up. And so the updates and the enhancements that are in the Leveling the Playing Field Act 2.0 are exactly in the spirit of what we need right now, which is the tailoring of a tool set and expansion of a tool set that is going to be up to the task of meeting the challenges that we're facing today.
And with China in particular, would you agree?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.